Hi, today we're going to talk about why do therapists always blame parenting? And I'm going to do something a little bit different today because I want to tell you where I got this from. And I'm setting up here. I want to read this to you very specifically. On one of my videos, I got this comment, and I think it's a fabulous comment. And I was like, this is a great question, and I'm going to answer it. So that's what I'm doing today. This is what one of my viewers said on YouTube. She said, I believe it was a she. Let me go. You can never tell. Yeah, yes. I'm going to say it's a she. Um, but anyway, they said, why do most therapists blame parenting? It's so lazy and judgmental. Some adults have complex PTSD or PTSD because of things that have happened to them as young adults. Okay. That's what I'm going to respond to. And this gets to be annoying. And I want to show you, she gets to be annoyed about this, right? This is a frustration she has. And she also has some judgments around this, and good, her brain is working. But I want to answer this from the brain's perspective and my specific experience as a therapist and what I've seen. Okay, so I'm going to show you this behind the scenes. So I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a mental health therapist and an emotional wellness coach. I specialize in complex PTSD recovery, and I help people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. The brain has a really beautiful process for this that is natural, that also gets stopped and blocked. And if this process isn't running, we don't get to resolve our symptoms. It doesn't matter how much talk therapy we do. It doesn't matter. The brain actually needs to go through its process for resolving symptoms, and that process can be blocked no matter what you're doing. Or not necessarily no matter what, but there are specific things that will unlock and unblock it. That's what I specialize in, and getting that moving for people so that your brain is resolving your symptoms for you like it's designed to do. Okay, so that's really where I'm in. That's the dog I have in the fight is I want your brain processing, I want your brain resolving symptoms, and I want your brain healing. That's it. So and that takes me right into where we're going to go. Um, when I am resolving symptoms with people, I'm helping them resolve symptoms. I feel like I am a servant of the brain. It's like, hey, brain, what do you want to do? Where are we going today? Why are you hung up over here? You've got flashbacks, you're gripping the car, or every time you hear somebody try and control you, you are freaking out and doing survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. Tell me more. This is how I approach everything. I don't assume what's going on because I don't know. Okay. And I've worked with hundreds of people. I'm probably close to 500, 600. So, and every time I show up, like, I don't know. Tell me all about it, because I have done this enough to know that what will traumatize one person doesn't traumatize another. And it's about where your brain can't make it through its healing process. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that spot where your brain is like, I can't with this. Okay. When we get to that spot, we're saying, oh, well, let's help you do this thing with this, because this is also your job, which that's the brain is trying to recruit support to actually resolve this issue, which is it's perfectly doing what it's designed to do. So it's bringing this up and saying, hey, I can't with this, help me. So, and then we walk your brain through its healing process. We actually shift it out of survival mode into processing mode. There are specific interventions that help the brain do this. They're very different and interesting and unique. They seem weird and you're like, you really do this? Yes, I really do this, because we're actually talking to a different part of the brain. We want the part of the brain that stops the healing process to knock that off and allow healing to happen. Okay. And so we will, and it's very influenceable. So we're influencing it to allow healing mode instead of survival mode, right? We find ourselves in survival mode, which is not a healing mode. The brain cannot work things out in this space, and we move it over here where it can. So let's say you've got this symptom and your brain is like, hey, I can't with this. And guess what? Every time it comes up, we're going to make a panic attack out of it. While we're working on that piece, we're going to be shifting the brain and processing, and all of a sudden the brain is resolving the panic attack instead of reacting to it, reacting to whatever that was. That's getting processed instead of being used to generate symptoms. That's how we heal. That's how this whole process works. I have tons of videos about it. I'm going to try not to get any deeper than that right now. Okay. So when I show up with clients and I am in the present, um, I find that there is a lot of healing that we can do in the present moment, and we need to do that. It's a great place to start. It's actually less triggering and less problematic for brains to be working in the present. But if there is a root cause in the earlier timeline, nothing that you do in the present is going to fix it because the brain is stuck on something back here. It's like, I want to help you there, but I can't because this thing right here. I want to help you there and I can't because of this thing. If you're a trauma therapist or you're experiencing trauma, you see this happening and you intuitively go here because you've just done it enough times that you're like, I'm not struggling with the brain. I'm going to believe the brain. And when the brain says, but what about this? And there's tons of signs for this. I teach these signs in my program, Inner World Transformation, and it's a very nuanced training. So I'm not going to go there here. But there are signs that you can see that happen when a root is in the past. Okay. And so you follow that root. And it's very easy to do. The brain wants to tell you all about it because it's like, if the brain knows if I can resolve that one thing, there's so much I can do. There's so much healing I can do. So you go back here with the brain and you resolve this and healing happens. So if this happens over and over and over again in time, as therapists, we learn, oh, I'm looking for the root because we want to get you out of this problem the fastest we can. And we understand brain function enough to know that this isn't about what we want. This isn't about what we believe. It's about where your brain is stuck. So we go with the brain. And what I will tell you is that the brain is constantly taking us back to early childhood before the age of 7. That's what it's doing. And that's the time when your parents are in charge of and responsible for your processing, your neurological development, your soothing, your nervous system regulation. They're in charge of all of that. That's their job. And guess what? Parents also have the job of your finances, making sure you're fed, making sure you're growing, making sure you're intellectually stimulated, making sure you're neurologically stimulated. There's a lot on the parenting plate, and parents are going to drop the ball. And I am a parent. And so I'm not over here, demonizing parents, though some parents maybe would fall into that category. But 100% of parents are going to miss a processing opportunity with some child. And if how the mind body systems designed is that brains want to process stuff, and there's some things that occur that if we don't process it if we don't get that process, the brain can't resolve things in the present. And so we go back and resolve it. It doesn't necessarily mean that this parent did a terrible job. It just means this is something unprocessed from your childhood. I have seen these things be super small. I have seen these things be super terrible and awful and catastrophic. I've seen these things just be everything in between. So there is that. And then there's another piece of this I want you to know, that as adults, we go into things and we go into experiences, and we have our intentions, we have our desires, we have our knowing, we have our plans, we have our skills, we have our intentions, we have a vision. And your ability and capacity to fulfill that vision is dependent upon the capacity, conditioning, training you have going into it. If you don't have enough insight built into this issue, when you come and you try to resolve a marriage problem and you don't have enough insight, you're probably not going to have lots of success resolving it. Right? If you are going to do a public speaking thing and your ability to process fear, shame, and social distress is low, you get in this and you're going to see signs that you don't have capacity for this emotionally. Your infrastructure has always, as adults, this is part of life. We're growing our infrastructure. That is what you go into life with, and your success in these events are based upon your infrastructure, the brain functions you've practiced, how good you are at running fear and reading facial cues and all these processing things. And so if your brain has not practiced them because it's been in fight or flight because of trauma, then you're going to come into these moments and fail, struggle, not quite have enough of whatever's required, and it's going to give you feedback. And so we could sit here in the present and work on this because there are traumatic events that occurred in the present, in the recent history. But usually by the time somebody is experiencing recent trauma, their ability to be resilient in it or to overcome it is challenged because actually the practicing and processing and building capacity for overcoming adverse experiences didn't go so well in childhood. That wasn't a program developed then. And so now we have got this traumatic experience that the brain is struggling to process just because it's not good at this. And that often began early. And these often, I'm telling you from what I've seen, match the parent's ability to overcome adverse experiences. We're passing on so many things through the mirroring neurons, which is what we're designed to do. And so it's not that we're blaming parents, it's that we're understanding the situation. We're understanding how brains learn and grow, how conditioning and preparation and practice show up. And it's feedback on parenting. And that's one of the downsides of parenting, is that you're going to get feedback on how you're doing parenting. And 100% of us are getting this feedback. And success is dependent upon how well we can receive and integrate feedback. If we can get the nuggets from it, if we can toss out what doesn't matter, what doesn't match, if we can take out the things that maybe are painful, but boy, that's really important information. If we can get that information from it, now our brain will integrate it. That causes a rewiring, and then we will show up better and more effective the next time, which is great. That's that feedback loop of health and wellness, right? If we have a traumatic experience, and traumatic experiences require processing, and traumatic experiences in the present can be really devastating. And I wish I thinking about, I can see this in a chart form, but if you have had lots of practice processing trauma, that doesn't mean that you're going to be great at this. Because then you could have your resources depleted by the time you get here. That's a sign. If you don't have the resources and you're depleted here, what happened to you? Where are all your resources? Where was all your support? It already means that you're lagging in processing, and not because you're bad at processing, usually because there wasn't enough support. Why? Where's the root of that? Because we need to resolve that to be able to gather more resources for processing the current traumas that happened in your young adulthood. Sometimes when I get into recent trauma, what we find is that there's a historical pattern of not being able to process shame or fear or powerlessness. We got to go resolve that. Where is that coming from? Often it's coming from childhood, and often the parent doesn't have. It's like there's usually a family pattern of an emotion that just doesn't process well in the family line. That this family is just not good with that emotion. And there's a lot of emotions out there. You got to be good at all of them. Yes. And are we all good at all of them? No. And we cope and we get along, and all of that stuff is fine until a traumatic event requires you to be able to process that emotion. Okay, well, we're not. And so we're going to go back and we're going to review, and we're going to give your brain practice processing that emotion in earlier childhoods where it's easier for your brain to process this stuff. And as it's getting practice back there, we're going to show up to the present, and the brain's going to be like, oh, I know what to do with this emotion now. Boom, boom, bam. And now that trauma is running, is processing, is healing, then there's post-traumatic growth. And so that's why we're going back to childhood a lot, because it's easier actually for the brain. And I know to some of you, you're like, that's a lie. And I understand why you would feel that way. And For you, it might not be easier. For your brain, it's easier. And that's a real thing. And we have to strategize for that. I see all the time where people's brains are like, I really want to resolve this. I really look at this, look at this, look at this. And the person is like, I cannot. And we've got to get both parts of you ready. Your brain is already ready. It's already running all the flashbacks. It's already everywhere you go. It's cornering you with the same damn story. And it's just everywhere. You're avoiding the things that cause triggers to it. It's just your brain keeps bringing it to your face, right? That's a healing function. That's your brain saying, I want this resolved, resolve this for me. And over here, you're not ready. And that's real. We have to do this preparation work. We have to get you ready. And this is where we stay in the present. This is where we're working on restoring your energies. We're getting your recent events processed. We're working on stress processing. We're trying to get as much executive functioning and healing function going on as possible so that there's energy to recruit, and also that you have enough success that you think, maybe I could resolve this. Right? And we're trying to bring you and your brain into alignment to finally get that processed. And sometimes there are things in the past that the brain wants to learn that you can process now. So we're still going to go back and do those ones, even though there's some big things in there that you can't process yet. We're not going to go there. But we need to get the healing momentum running so that we can resolve some of these massive wounds in there, or brain dysfunctions, brain malfunctions, things that were wired that shouldn't be there, misassociations, misunderstandings. We need to clean that up. And oftentimes those are in traumatic experiences. So we may need to go there later. So, and so if you can understand as a trauma therapist, these are the reasons why we go back to childhood, and why a parent and their strategies get reviewed. It's really important that people understand that this is not them. This is the result of this particular parenting style. This is the result of anybody who is in this specific situation would come out the same way, because that's the dynamic, right? If there's a hole in something and we pour melted candle wax in it, it's going to come out in that shape. That's how it works. Those are the principles of the earth. And if you put a child into the parent's hole, they're like hot wax, and you get the child out and they're in the form of the parent, and that might not be the form that is there for their highest good. And we need to get that going so that they're shaped in their own form, that their mind body system is getting to reshape them for their highest good and alignment. And so that doesn't have to be a hate thing, but sometimes people need to really understand this is not you. This is the situation. This is the dynamic. This is what happens with scapegoating. This is what happens when parents can't process their own shame. This is what happens in generational patterns of anxiety. Right? And so, and oftentimes in the beginning, there are many people who will be enraged and angry with their parents, and that's okay. It's just an emotion. We're going to process it, and that's going to give us practice processing intense emotions and anger and rage. And pretty soon they will come to a very beautifully balanced, assertive, kind, boundaried way of understanding themselves, their parents, and their dynamics. And that is usually a place where love skyrockets and compassion skyrockets. And so a lot of us are afraid of anger because in that first stage, we hate everybody. We're mad at everybody. It's a really inflammatory, big stage. But if we can let that fire burn safely, which is a thing we're doing over here, we're strategizing to contain this fire so it doesn't burn down your life. But we need it to burn. We need it to process. We aren't suppressing this anymore. But maybe we need to take out pieces at a time. Maybe we need to make sure this thing's in a single file line, that they don't all rush up here and start this whole dumpster fire. But we need to, anger is a very specific reporter. It needs to be able to make it to the top of the brain and tell them all about it. They are the only ones here in full response to you. If they hear this stuff, they rewire for you. They say, oh, she doesn't like this. He doesn't like that. Oh, this makes him feel ashamed. This makes her feel guilty. Let's stop doing that. Let's do something different. Anger is about that. Anger is about boundary violations. Shame is about place feelings of unworthiness or not measuring up, not being good enough, which is a real thing. We're not all good enough. We're not good enough all the time for everything, right? It's not the end of the world. So what? We're not good enough. We're also good enough. I mean, it's like all these truths at the same place that brains are like, you got to get all the truths. You got to get as many of them as you need together, brain, and create something, a really healthy way of being to move forward. That's your brain's job. It can't just say, "What do you mean I'm not worthy?" No, you're not in this. You are in here. You're not. Like, let's be specific. Let's not overgeneralize this. And it's safe to be all these things. It's safe to be worthy. It's safe to be not worthy. It's safe to be good enough. It's safe to not be good enough, right? I mean, it's just we're and these are things we learn in childhood. If our parent is afraid of not being worthy and they have a big unworthiness wound, we're going to have issues with it. Right. And guess what? There's some tricks also. You can watch your parents struggle with this and get your processor open and running, because it's very painful to see our parents struggling with emotional distress. If we can get you, this is why I have people use interventions with this exercise. But if we watch our parents, our brain is going to be processing that relationship with our parents and processing the pain of watching our parents here. And sometimes that's our whole challenge with unworthiness. And then all of a sudden our brain's like, oh, unworthiness isn't that big of a deal. Oh, it's not the end of the world. And it becomes a non-issue. And then it opens up to all the truths about worthiness. And I'm also worthy. And worthiness is tier two. And somewhat and this and that. And it's just a thing. And your brain's learned to master that. So there's a lot that has to do with parenting. And I think as parents, it's really helpful when we understand that we are not perfect. We are not designed to be perfect. Parents that have done I have had a couple clients in my history of all the things that their parents were so awesome that it actually caused mental anxiety disorders in the child, right? We had to work through that. So you can be great and you're gonna give your kids, parents are the biggest obstacle. We could be the biggest blessing. Even if we are the biggest blessing, we are still the biggest obstacle to our child's nervous system and health and wellness. And especially, it's just in the design, especially because our brains are going to make things for us. Our brain is not making things for them. So even we can try, and the more we listen and the more we understand our children, the more our brain can do a better job at customizing things for our kids. But ultimately, our kids have to be able to individuate and realize, oh, my brain's the one that makes things for me. What do I do when my stuff doesn't agree with mom's stuff, or my stuff doesn't agree with that stuff? What am I going to do with this? Brains need to figure that out. How am I going to be in the world even though I'm different than mom? How am I going to be in the world even though I'm different than dad? Will I still be loved? Will I still be accepted? Will I still be valued? Brains have to figure that out. Or what happens when I'm not valued because I don't have the same beliefs as my mom or dad? What am I going to do? Am I going to choose to individuate and learn how to be me here? Or am I just going to set myself aside so I can cling to my parents? These are challenges and obstacles that we are all dealing with on some level or another. And I want you to be good at it. This is real human stuff over here. We want to belong. These are we're pack animals. And we also need to figure out how to belong, how to not belong, how to be ourselves, how to consider others, and do it well. That's a lot. And then we got to do it in every single situation that we're in. No problem, brain. Get to work. What are you doing over there? No, this is difficult. And and we can be compassionate to our parents. We can be compassionate with our brain. We can be compassionate and hateful at the same time as well. These are just emotions. They're just electrical impulses moving through us. And the more they process, the more the brain weaves them into beautiful things and ways of being and expressions in our life. So that's what I have to say about blaming parents. And if you are blaming your parents right now, like you're actually doing the blaming, it's your fault, use it to heal, and do it in a way that's safe and that actually gets healing out of it. I have a video called The Right Way to Blame Your Parents So You Can Finally Heal. Watch that. So wonderful hanging with you. And I encourage you, try this new way of working with your brain because it really unlocks so many of these things. And if you're sick of blaming your parents, and maybe even that's one of the motivations behind this whole why do therapists blame their parents? If you're sick of that, that means you're stuck in that processing state, and we're not meant to be stuck there. These are places you want to travel through. You want to travel through blaming your parents, and there's brain work in there. And if your brain can get you past this, your brain's finished, it's going to be like, hey, let's go. We're done with that. That was so last month. Okay. So we want that process going, and we want to empower your brain to lead you forward with health and wellness and not just keep you stuck in things like this. So there's a specific way of working with the brain to get it to do this for you. I teach 3 of my favorite interventions for that in my program, Interventions for Inner World Transformation. It's free. Grab those interventions, try them out. If your brain likes it, awesome. Use it a lot. If your brain doesn't like it, throw it out. Simple. And also in there, I'm teaching you what signs you'll see that show that your brain is moving from survival mode to processing, and what to look for, what to see, because I want the intervention to actually work, not hope it works. Right? I want you to see signs it's working, and to pick an intervention or 2 or 3 that really work for you. And when you have one of those, I have another program called Inner World Transformation, where I show you how to use that intervention that actually works for your brain. And then the exercises to do where you and your brain work together to resolve these issues and to resolve any symptoms of complex PTSD from any trauma. Also symptoms of anxiety, depression, also issues like slow self-esteem, low mood, um, judgments, negative judgments, impaired judgments. Judgments are really important. All kinds of things in here. But this is my step-by-step process for resolving anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress symptoms, and especially when they have become disorders. So they're bigger features and they're more complex. This is my process for resolving complex issues. So it is pretty awesome and very empowering, and I teach you to do the healing work yourself. So I encourage you to have a look at that. And yeah, I also would do this. I also work one-on-one with people in coaching and also small groups, and I have some consultation opportunities. All of that can be found on my website, rachelmcleod.com, and I will, on that note, see you around. Take care.